My name is Maia Cruz Palileo, and I am a painter, and I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. A lot of the titles for my shows mostly come from letters that my grandmother wrote me. And at some point, when she was still alive, I asked her to start writing me her story, her life story. And she was a little shy to speak. So when she would write something, and it would be like kind of long, and then she'd be like, "Oh, long cuento. I've talked too much. Like it's too much, long cuento." But cuento means story, so it basically means long story. And so in the first conversation that I had when I first met Kim was sort of asking the question of what would you like to do if you didn't have to work like in a commercial gallery setting? That question really planted the seed, and I came out to see the space. And when I got to the Wattis, the first thing I kind of felt was the wide openness of it, the big space, and I saw the skylights and the large back wall. And so one of the things that I thought, well, this is kind of an opportunity for me to work really large. So at that time, I was working on this proposal for a public art project at this cemetery called Cypress Hill Cemetery. And so I had gone to see that space, and that space also was like very vast. It just sort of like flashed of like, oh my gosh, all the lives that were lived. One of the things that I learned was that at some point the cemetery had grown over, like all of this growth, the flora and the fauna had begun to grow over all the graves. That really struck me, and I started thinking about what does it mean to disappear? Like, what does it mean for something to become overgrown? And I just sort of had this like vision of like figures appearing and disappearing in like a lush landscape. Even though those graves are visible, like what was there before that we don't see? And so thinking about that, the seen and the unseen, like what's visible and what's not visible. And if it's not visible, how do we remember things that we can't see? When I first started doing the research of not only my family, but then the larger picture, the history between the Philippines and the United States, of course, is a colonial history. I did sort of map out what I wanted to look at, and I wanted to make sure that I was not only looking at a one-sided story. Much of our history is written by either the Spanish or the American, but there are archives by Filipinos. And one of the main ones that I was looking at was paintings by Damian Domingo. I think the thing that stood out to me the most with those was that I got a sense that there was a pride and a care. There was a lot of consideration and care, and that to me was in the formal aspects of the work, which were the strokes, the materials. And then when I switched over, I started to take out the photographs from the Dean Worcester archive, and it was all Dean Worcester's writing. And that to me was the most painful part, because here was this dude just saying what he was seeing and sort of forcing that narrative, that like overarching narrative. And I think the anger, fueled the work when I got back. That there was like this sort of indignant feeling that I had that was like, no, you can't get away with that. I'm gonna change the story a little bit. I'm gonna take these people out and I'm gonna put them in a different situation. It all comes out in the work. And I think now those images, I've sort of soaked them into my body. Like I've absorbed them, and I can't really tell you what they're doing now, but they're definitely like something's changing. The wood sculptures were based on figures in paintings. So this one that's standing, in the original painting, the painting is called The Love Letter, and the figure is holding a letter and kind of like looking up. The viewer can't read what the letter says, but we see the reaction of the figure. And then the other figure comes from a painting of it's a bust, and it's of a figure holding a blank piece of paper and a pencil in the other hand. And both of the figures are engaged with a blank paper or a blank book. For me, like those paintings had, in a way, like they contain a potential, and those figures had in the paintings had this sort of self-possession or knowledge, and there's also like withholding and imagination and memory. And so the figures take up like the central space of the gallery. They're life size and they're surrounded by the paintings. They're all part of one body or organism that makes up the show. A lot of the paintings and some of the paintings in the show are gouache paint, and part of that process for me that I'm really intrigued by is the fluidity of it. There's a lot of like water and water imagery in the work, and that feels like that's a vehicle for what we can't see, but that remains in our very longer than one lifetime memory. And I think there is something about color that contains sort of that strand of that long memory. In the beginning, when Kim asked me, like, what would you like to do that you can't do in a commercial space? And I think like that was such a, it was like it unlocked a, like it was like a key that unlocked this gate, I guess, that I was in. And you know, obviously working on a larger scale, but another thing that's really exciting that I'm super excited about, and that I hope to do in future projects as well, is that I'm collaborating with my cousin, Dahlia Nayar, who is a choreographer, and she works with the Uh-Oh trio. The three of them will be doing a multimedia performance in the space on the last 2 days that the show is open, and they are dancers and musicians. And so, like, again, that multi-sensory aspect, I think I'm just really excited to see where that goes and how that kind of unfolds, because that is definitely something I'm really interested in continuing.